A critical component of anyone's retirement plan is planning for healthcare costs. Today, we're going to focus on Medicare and what you need to know. Whether you are approaching retirement or helping a loved one navigate their options, understanding Medicare can help you make informed decisions and secure a healthier future. I'm Betty Wang, host of Betty's Smart Friends. I'm a certified financial planner who helps women be more empowered and feel less alone in their financial lives. Joining us today is Julia Wiswell. Julia is the owner of Wiswell Insurance, and she's a Medicare specialist. I'm so excited to share her insights with you. Please welcome Julia to the podcast. Hi, Julia.
Hi, thanks for having me, Betty.
Thanks so much for joining us. I guess let's start a little bit about you. Can you share your background and how you found health insurance and Medicare as a field for your profession and your business?
Yeah, so I'm a Medicare broker, and so I consider myself a broker. So that just means that I contract with multiple carriers to give our clients access to care and choices in providers and what's best for them. I've been doing this for 10 years now, and we're an agency based in North Denver. Um, and I just got into it randomly at a networking event, and it was the year after ACA Obamacare started, and it was just such a unknown industry for people to be able to navigate. So it just kind of worked out, and then I fell in love with insurance and helping people and offering some insight into a really confusing industry for people.
Yes, it's super confusing.
Yes, a lot
So,
of
yeah,
moving parts.
yes. So, I mean, today we're just going to focus on Medicare, and I think we
Hmm.
could fill more time than we have allotted, but
Yes.
because it is confusing. For somebody who is just starting to think about enrolling in Medicare, they're like, okay, well, I'm going to be turning 65 next year or in a couple of years. What should they start thinking about?
Yeah, so I would say the big thing is making sure that they, are starting to think about it in a timely manner. I would say usually 6 months um, is an ideal time for people to start having the thought of, all right, 65 is approaching, or you're thinking about retirement. Um, some of this stuff, it is hard to start very early just because it is a lot of information. And so if you're starting, years prior, it's good information to have, but it is a lot to absorb. And so I think ideally starting around the 6 month mark is great for people. And really, we would start the enrollment process 3 months prior to their effective date, is as soon as we can really start the process in terms of paperwork and plan selections. So um, yeah, I think it's kind of a good 6 to 3 month time frame.
Well, because it changes every year too. Is that right?
Yes, in terms of like when somebody's eligible, essentially just based on their birthday. So, um, but the open enrollment period for people is standard from October 15th through December 7th, so that part doesn't change. But yeah, it is a throughout the year. It is changing for people on their eligibility and their circumstance.
And can you explain to folks what the different parts of Medicare are and what they need to know? I know
Yes,
it's
all the letters of
complicated.
the
Yeah, all
alphabet.
the letters are very confusing.
Yes, I mean in general, um, the bigger parts of Medicare are Part A, B, C, and D. Those are the most common, referred to Medicare parts. And so Part A will cover your overnight hospital stays, hospice care, skilled nursing facility. And Part B covers everything else medically. So your doctor's visits, your blood work, imaging, uh, urgent care, emergency services, injections, infusions, all of that's billed under Medicare Part B. And Part A and Part B are referred to as original Medicare. Those are the core parts of somebody getting on Medicare. And then D would be D is for drugs, so that's their prescription drug plan that will cover retail filling prescriptions, not an injection or infusion that's offered at a medical facility. So D is just for retail filling prescriptions. And then Part C is referred to as an Advantage plan. So Part C and an Advantage plan mean the same exact thing. And this is where somebody like myself comes in and we work with the insurance carriers that offer Medicare Advantage plans and walking through people, our clients, what each plan covers and what their needs are. So Part C is the Advantage plan that basically bundles in your Part A, your Part B, and Part D generally. Your prescription drug plan is kind of referred to as the bundle package for Part C.
So can you just spend a little more time there? Because I think that's where it gets confusing, where it's like, it's just called Original Medicare and Medicare Advantage. What are the main differences between them? What should people know?
I would say so, because a lot of times people are like, oh, I have Medicare, but you also have a Medicare Advantage plan.
Right.
And technically you do have both. You have to have both to be on an Advantage plan. But the Medicare Part A and Part B is you're essentially just using Medicare's network. So you can go to any provider that accepts Medicare. And if you do a Medicare Advantage plan, this is where the insurance companies come in, such as United or Humana, Aetna, all the insurance companies that offer Advantage plans. That's who your insurance is with now. You no longer have Medicare in terms of network coverage or benefits when you enroll in an Advantage plan. Now you're subject to that particular carrier's benefits, possibly their network coverage. So just main factor is benefits, what's available to you, and network access.
And what do you see when people are trying to decide between the two? Like, what's the advantage of one versus the other?
Yes, the ultimate question.
Yeah, we got to it fast.
Yes, you did. You
Well, I think
wasted no
this is
time. I love
the
that.
most confusing part,
Yes.
even for myself, right? It's like, okay,
What do you do?
what do you
Yeah.
do? What's the difference? Am
Yeah.
I stuck? If I choose one, can I never choose the other? Those sorts of things.
Yes. That is the ultimate question. I would say the two biggest factors between the two, between original Medicare and an Advantage plan, would be we talked about network access, but diving more into that, network access with original Medicare is usually a little bit greater because it's much like having a PPO where they can go, nationwide. They can see any provider that accepts Medicare. They typically don't need a referral to see a specialist. So it's a very flexible network. Medicare is very flexible. With the Advantage plan, typically you choose between an HMO or a PPO. And so sometimes people feel that they're a little more network restricted, especially if you're on an HMO plan. You're bound to a carrier's network. And so sometimes that means you can't see a specific, doctor or facility, or maybe you don't have access in a different state, especially if you have a house, if you have somebody that snowbirds. And so sometimes that doesn't sit well with people being a little more network restricted. But on the flip side to that, Medicare Advantage plan can sometimes be affordable on a monthly aspect because most plans don't have a monthly premium. And if somebody's very healthy and is okay with, being network restricted to the Front Range here in Colorado specifically, that tends to work well for people. They're okay with, saving monthly and okay with not accessing care necessarily out of Colorado, outside of Colorado. And so it is very tailored, to what works for your specific needs. Are you really set on accessing care outside of Colorado if you needed to? Is that something that ranks very important to you? Or, do you spend time out of the state for a certain amount of months? Do you do a lot of traveling? Do you want to make sure that you can easily access care nationwide? Um, so those are factors that are really important for somebody when they're deciding what route do I go? Do I go with, Medicare with a supplement, or do I go with a Medicare Advantage Part C? And I would say network and cost are the two main factors in that decision.
So Medicare with a supplement, does that tend to be more expensive than Medicare Advantage?
Yeah, it can be. Depending, on how somebody's using the plan from a monthly aspect, it is more expensive because with the supplement you have an extra premium. With the Advantage plan, generally most of them are around $0. So right away from a monthly perspective, Medicare with the supplement is going to cost more. Now, does that monthly premium, collectively over 12 months, is that more than an out-of-pocket maximum on an Advantage plan? Sometimes it's less. And so, that's the other factor. If somebody's very sickly or a high medical user, you can save with the supplement plan. Where the flip side is, if somebody's not a high medical user and they're okay with having, some co-pays if they were to go to use the plan, the Advantage plan from a monthly perspective can be less.
Well, and I know some of my clients like the Advantage plans because also some of them come with vision and dental care too. And that's something
Great
that
point.
Medicare with supplements does not. Is that correct?
Correct. Yeah. The supplement, Medicare with the supplement is kind of like the a la carte option. You're getting a separate dental plan, a separate vision plan, separate prescription drug plan, where Part C is referred to that bundle package. Just as you said, it does include most of the time dental, vision, your prescription drug plan. Sometimes they'll offer extra benefits, like an over-the-counter benefit where you could purchase vitamins and eye drops and cough syrup. So yeah, it does give some of those extra benefits. And if that's important to somebody, a lot of times we'll deal with clients that are like, I use more dental coverage than I do medical. Like dental's number one priority to me. So, and that could be a good option for somebody if that's important to them and keeping the monthly premium lower.
So if a client came to you to talk about enrolling in Medicare, can you walk us through like what questions or what that looks like for you to guide them to what makes most sense for them?
Yeah, so a lot of times, I'll start with what's important to you in terms of network access. A lot of people haven't been asked the question, if you were to get sick, is it important for you to go to Mayo Clinic? Is it important for you to be able to access care outside of Colorado? If that's not important to you, that kind of helps me, narrow in on, okay, we can, maybe look at an HMO plan that doesn't scare them. So definitely, what's important to them as far as accessing care. Also their health, typically a lot of times people wait until they're 65 on Medicare to get a joint replacement. And so if that's something that's upcoming, that's a cost that we'll talk about. Network access, making sure that they can see those providers that they want to go to. But really just kind of getting to know the client and what's important to them. Prescription drugs is another factor on what they're taking regularly, or injections or infusions as well. How people are using their healthcare really day to day.
Do you find that Medicare versus Medicare Advantage or the Advantage plans, one's better or more cost effective or covers more drugs? I mean, do you find one is better than the other or just sort of depends?
Well, that question is a great question, but with particularly in 2025, the Medicare Advantage plans and the prescription drug plans now have a $2,000 max out of pocket. So that was a little more important in terms of who was really covering, what carrier was really covering that particular drug better. And that sometimes required a little more research on our end. But now with this $2,000 maximum for 2025, that means that the client won't pay more than $2,000 a year for all of their prescriptions as long as that prescription's on the formulary. And so that has kind of changed the landscape a little bit in terms of, shopping for prescription drug plans. If somebody's taking a very expensive drug like Eliquis, or Xarelto or an inhaler, these clients are probably going to reach a $2,000 maximum on prescription drugs. And so it, gives a little more flexibility, I would say, for us, because most drugs are covered. And so it's not really how you're going to get there, it's when. And so they'll tend to reach that, is what we're finding for this year. And that will, also be years to come unless legislation changes that. But it was a good change. It's at least a step in the right direction for people.
What about folks who are unhealthy? They're coming up to Medicare and they've had a lot of health issues. Is there one plan that tends to be better than the other? Or, just to be clear, Medicare has to take you, right? There's
Yes,
no underwriting, right?
In certain instances, there can be, and that is something that I want to address. I feel like that is a little bit of a
misconception.
Very much, yes. And so, somebody that's very unhealthy, typically the supplemental plan could be a better option, because when you add up the monthly premium, it still could be less than a max out of pocket on an Advantage plan. And also, somebody that's typically a little more unhealthy or a high medical user wants access to care. They don't want to be, looking up, gosh, can I go see Dr. Smith, or can I go see this doctor? It gives them that open flexibility to worry a little bit less on where they can go or who they can see. And there is a point where the cost of your Medicare supplemental plan essentially is the same cost as a max out of pocket on the Advantage plan. So there is a break even, I would say, which is usually for somebody around 75 or older. That tends to start to equal out. So then at that point, it's not necessarily a cost factor. It's more of how easily do you want to be able to access providers. But yeah, I'd say generally that's typically that conversation goes with somebody that's a high medical user.
Now that we're on misconceptions, like what other misconceptions? Yes. I think there's a lot of them out there. What other ones would you like to sort of shed some light on for us?
Yeah. So just going back to underwriting really quick. So underwriting, there's no underwriting when somebody first turns 65 and gets on Medicare. They can choose any Medicare Advantage plan, no questions asked, or they can choose any supplemental plan with any carrier, no medical questions asked. The underwriting comes in if somebody's been on a Medicare Advantage plan for 5-10 years, and then they want to go on a Medicare supplemental plan. That's when they're going to go through underwriting. And at that point, the insurance company does have the ability or the option to deny that person coverage. They will look into that client's medical history and choose either to accept or deny them. And so that can be a challenge for some people, but they're looking for big stuff like liver, heart, lung issues, joint replacements, hospitalizations. So that's not to scare people that you can't get through underwriting. We have people get through underwriting. But it is something that is a potential, kind of an overhang on people. The other time that there's no underwriting is if somebody is retiring, so they're past age 65, maybe they're 70, they've decided to work a little bit longer, and then they want to go on Medicare. Again, there's no underwriting at that point either, as long as they are just applying for Medicare Part B is what kind of determines whether underwriting is a factor or not. And so those people can also get a Medicare supplement with no underwriting, even though they're past age 65. But yeah, those are typically when underwriting, we hear that a lot. Like when we tell people that, they're like, oh, I never thought there was pre-existing conditions or underwriting. But for the most part, there isn't. But there are cases where underwriting could be a challenge.
So it's kind of saying that, well, are you stuck in you're saying that you're not stuck in Medicare or an Advantage plan. You can switch between the two.
You can always switch between the two during the open enrollment period, but if somebody's been on an Advantage plan for, over 2 years, essentially, then to go to the supplement, they would go through underwriting.
Okay. So
But anybody can get an Advantage.
you kind of want to maybe understand if you have pre-existing conditions when you're deciding initially. Not that you're stuck, but you just have to
Yeah.
know that there's more paperwork or kind of more of a headache if you decide to switch later then.
Very
Is that
much.
fair? Okay.
Yes, absolutely. Yep. That initial, decision is a big factor, because there is no underwriting at first. And so, yes, that is a very important decision when you're first getting on Medicare is what makes sense right away from the beginning.
Well, and so, I mean, I feel like probably a lot of people try to do this on their own, but
Yeah.
they don't know as much as you know. Um, I don't know. I just feel like they're at a disadvantage then, right?
It's a lot. It's a
It's a
lot
lot.
of information to consume and digest.
Well, I think there's another, you know, misconception that Medicare pays for everything. On the podcast, we've had someone talk about long-term care, so we've definitely talked about that. You know, long-term care is not covered by Medicare, but I think people don't realize that there's premiums, that there are co-pays, and all that kind of stuff. Can you talk us through that a little bit? Because
Yeah.
it's not all free.
That's right. That's right.
It
No,
would be
that is
amazing, but not
yes,
at this time.
I agree. That is a little bit of a misconception because everybody generally, unless we're dealing with somebody that's on Medicaid, low income, state insurance, but some people are even surprised that you pay for Part B. They're like, oh, I didn't realize I had to pay a monthly premium, and so that everybody pays for Part B. So regardless if you go with an Advantage or a supplemental plan. So sometimes people are surprised. They're like, wow, I didn't realize I even had a monthly premium for Part B. But yeah, I would say, in general, that's definitely a factor. And long-term care is another one that you mentioned that is not covered by any Medicare plan, whether it's an Advantage or a supplemental plan. That's all out of pocket, custodial long-term care. So that is a factor. What else? But I mean, generally, for the most part, how people are using health insurance, everything's pretty much covered, in terms of like hospitalizations and joint replacements and surgeries and things like that. There isn't a difference between somebody's health insurance plan and Medicare. It's very similar. Cosmetic procedures, of course, will not be covered. That's not any different. But, for more routine medical services, that's all pretty much covered on Medicare, just like it would be on a health insurance plan.
So will people be getting, right now, our insurance rate, we got this, oh, well, insurance paid this much, and you have to pay this.
Yes.
Are there co-payments with traditional Medicare or with the Medicare Advantage plans?
Yeah, and so you'll get EOBs, estimate of benefits, with Medicare or an Advantage plan, just like you would on, a traditional health insurance plan. And with Medicare, there are deductibles for Part A, and a deductible for Part B. And then generally, that particular individual would pay 20% co-insurance after those deductibles have been met. So that's pretty traditional. You have a deductible, then you pay a percentage. You typically pay that percentage until you reach a maximum out of pocket. With Medicare, there is no max out of pocket, which is why people get some sort of secondary insurance to help give that protection, that stop loss. And so you either do that by paying for the Medicare supplemental plan or by enrolling in the Advantage plan and then having that max out of pocket. Generally, the Advantage plans are set up where you don't pay the monthly premium and then you have copays. So each service essentially has a cost, and that cost is going towards a maximum out of pocket. And once that's been reached, then that person is covered 100% for the year.
Okay.
Yeah, a little bit different.
Yeah, no, it's a lot of information.
Yeah.
How does it work if you are, do you get compensated differently by pointing people into different directions? I mean, I think that's important for people to know because I think people are more and more skeptical of going to brokers, like they're trying to sell me
Hmm.
something. I mean, I know that that's not you, but it's,
Yeah.
I think it's important for people to know how someone like you might be compensated, and I'm sure it's different for different firms. But if they were to come to
Yeah.
you, how does that work?
Yeah, so in general, we pretty much have a contract with every carrier, and so we are compensated by that insurance company. So if somebody were to go out and enroll in their own Medicare Advantage plan or Medicare Supplemental plan, they would have the same plans, same cost as what we would offer. So we're not offering any sort of discounts or anything, to our clients. And then as far as compensation goes, we are compensated by the insurance company, which is why there's no cost to an individual to use a broker. So we do not charge like a consulting fee or anything extra. We get our commission from the insurance company. It
And
does
the
vary.
client's pricing, to be clear, is exactly the same though.
Exactly the same.
So they're
Yes,
getting the
exactly the
benefit
same.
of your knowledge without
Hmm.
for the same price.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, that's right. Exactly.
What if they
Yep.
went to, what if you're like, well, I think Medicare, traditional Medicare, works better? How does that work for you? Do you get compensated there or not really?
No, because with Medicare, they're essentially the client would enroll in Medicare Part A and Part B online through the Social Security website, and so that's not something that we can enroll in them on their behalf, I should say, so we can walk them through doing it through their Social Security account, but it's not something that we can fully take over and do on their behalf. Um, I mean, we pretty much never recommend that just because of that 20% accrual that doesn't give them that max out of pocket. So if something catastrophic were to happen, or even a very expensive ailment like cancer, that client is going to continue to pay 20% of all of those medical expenses. Where if they had some sort of supplemental plan or the Advantage plan, it gives them that protection that says, all right, this is the most I'm going to pay for these medical expenses for the year. So it's never our recommendation to just stay with Medicare just because of that. That's what insurance is, right? That unknown component of, do you want it to wipe out your savings or your retirement, um, for not paying a little bit monthly, or just having, the Advantage plan, worst case, to give you that protection.
So do you help them with the supplemental plan? Or how does
We
that
do.
work? Okay.
Hmm. So the supplemental plans are offered by insurance companies. So that is something that we contract with those carriers and offer those particular supplemental plans. Um,
So the
Currently,
supplemental plans aren't from directly from the Medicare.
correct.
Okay.
Yeah, those are from insurance companies,
Okay.
such as, yeah, all the carriers will
Okay.
offer a supplemental plan.
That makes more sense.
Yep. Even more info and more plans to digest.
Right. It's really, I think it's really overwhelming for
Yes.
people.
Yeah.
Typically, how many meetings do you have with clients when you're trying to work through this for them?
1 to 3 meetings is pretty typical. Um, it just depends on that particular client. If somebody's just super low maintenance, they don't want to necessarily dive too into plans and into detail and what's important to them. Sometimes they're on meeting one, they're like, yeah, makes sense, let's enroll, good to go. But a lot of times I would say 2 meetings is very typical for us. We have the initial consultation of just breaking down all of this information, going through costs, going through plans, going through prescriptions, doctors, um, and then we kind of summarize that in an email. They digest, and then we usually get back together, in about a week or 1 to 3 weeks or so, depending on how much time we have before their deadline to enroll. And then that's when we move forward and do an enrollment.
And do you recommend, because open enrollment is every fall, right? So do you
Yes.
recommend that people come to you every fall? It's not, I mean, I think most people are used to having their employer say it's open enrollment,
Hmm.
and if you don't do anything, your insurance just kind of rolls over. How does that
Yes.
work once you're retired?
Yeah.
Is it similar or is it different?
Very similar. No action required for the most part, unless a carrier is discontinuing a plan, which is typically pretty rare. But um, for the most part, it is a very seamless rollover. Just like you mentioned on the employer side, it's no change means that you're just rolling over. And so, um, these plans change some each year, with updates and different copay amounts changing. Um, I would say the network change is very low. There's not a lot of network change and fluctuation in that. Um, so if somebody is wanting to change, it's most likely due to the benefits. But every now and then, of course, there's a doctor that drops out of network that we have to change, or maybe a carrier loses a contract with a hospital system. Um, and so, I would say we send out an email to our clients, usually mid-September, that says, hey, open enrollment is approaching. We can legally talk about the plans for the following year, October 1st. So that's kind of when we start our process of how's your plan this year? Do you want to make changes? Um, and so that's kind of our process in our office for our clients. And, a lot of times people are like, it's been working great, or, maybe they haven't used it. And so it's not necessarily on their mind to make any big changes. And so, yeah, that'll just roll over for most carriers.
Well, historically, I think as advisors, have been told your client should look at it every year, especially
Yeah,
for the drug coverage, because they change the formularies and what they'll
yeah.
cover. I guess that's less of an issue now that there is a cap.
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, every now and then there's maybe a carrier that drops. It seems like this last year it was an inhaler that a lot of carriers weren't wanting to cover, and so um, that does create, of course, needing to look at it. There's getting a notice that says, "Hey, come the following year, we're not covering this prescription," and
So
so
clients
that
can expect a notice from that.
absolutely,
Okay.
yeah, they are
It's not like
notified.
they have to go digging to find this
Hmm.
is what I know that I take. Is it covered?
Correct. Yes.
And the same with doctors. Will they be notified if a doctor or hospital system is getting dropped from their network?
They will, yes. If that particular physician that they've been seeing or facility and they have that insurance and they're dropping, they will be notified. Yes. If it's a bigger scale, um, a provider losing a big hospital system, that's also very well known to us brokers in the industry. X carrier has now not working with this hospital system. But as far as doctors, that's not something that we necessarily know, um,
Until the
unless our
next year.
clients, yeah, until our clients are kind of coming and saying, hey, this, you know, doctor that I've been seeing is no longer accepting this plan. Um, but I'd say it's very few and far between that happens.
What are some common or mistakes that you see people making when they're choosing their plan? Or maybe they're not, or I don't know, what kind of things do you see? I'm sure you've seen a lot of things.
Yeah. Um, I would say sometimes I come across people that should probably be on a supplemental plan, and maybe they chose the Advantage plan, and sometimes they feel that they're mostly coming to me because they have an issue, and that issue is that there's maybe network restricted, um, and they had a pre-existing condition such as cancer, and so that that makes it challenging for them to be able to get on a supplemental plan because of the underwriting component now. So um, that's sometimes something that we'll see. The Advantage plans can be very enticing because of the zero monthly premium, but it, just like anything, it's not always the best choice for somebody. So it really depends on their medical history and how much care, access to care they're looking for. Um, but generally, I mean, you don't see a lot of things that can't be switched, it to help them get better coverage, whether it's their prescription is just costing too much and a different carrier is covering it better, that's something we can always switch. So for the most part, um, we don't come across people that are just in a really tough spot. I mean, um, even if they enroll late, the rules have changed around that a little bit. So even if they didn't enroll in Medicare when they should have, they still have the ability to pick it up the following month. So, things have changed to become a little more flexible, which is nice. So people aren't, you know, in a position where they're uninsured for a long period of time.
Can you talk about the current rules, just because they are always changing?
Yes. So if somebody didn't enroll in Medicare when they should have, when they turned 65 or when they lost employer coverage, and and to be clear, in this situation, if somebody did that, they are uninsured unless for some reason they have some other insurance. But in this scenario, if somebody just didn't get insured, um, one, they don't have insurance. Two, now they can apply in any month, and Medicare would take effect the first of the next month. So if somebody is applying in January, um, their Medicare would take effect February 1st. Where before it was, only could only do that from January through March was the only time you could apply. So somebody from April through December, you're having to wait that whole next year before you can apply. So now it's a little more flexible. We don't come across a lot of people in this situation, again, because you're uninsured. Most people
Right.
don't want to be uninsured.
Right.
So I can't say that this is something that I've personally come across very
Yeah.
often, that people are just, they're 67, they're like, oh, I guess I should have got Medicare 2 years ago.
Yeah.
But not, it does happen. But at least for those people now, it's a lot more flexible that they can pick it up.
But their costs are higher.
Their costs are going to be higher if they don't pick it up, specifically Medicare Part B when they're first eligible. They will have a 10% penalty, and that penalty is assessed for life. It never goes away. So yeah, it accrues. It's basically a compounding penalty. So the longer they go uninsured, the higher that penalty is. And so yeah, it can get pretty costly for somebody that just chooses to not enroll in Medicare when they're eligible.
And something that I talk about with my clients when we're doing tax planning and planning for retirement is IRMA. Can you talk a little bit about
Yes.
that and how that works?
Yes, this is somebody like yourself, where you guys, we work with advisors, and kind of planning for that, and if you're able to, great. And some people are just in a position where, you know, financially they have to do what they have to do. But because we also do under 65 insurance, so we come across a lot of people that retire early, and I would say that's 58 to between 58 and 65. So if we have that relationship with that client and we're saying, all right, you're 60 now, you have a financial advisor that you work with, you're going to retire. Um, we should bring that financial advisor into the conversation and say, Medicare does a 2-year look back period on your income. And the higher your income, the higher your Medicare Part B premium and your Medicare Part D prescription drug plan premium goes up. And so if that client is in a position with the advisor that you guys can, make their income within a bracket that feels comfortable for them to pay monthly, that's definitely something we work with. And so, yeah, a lot of times bringing that factor in, a lot of people are unaware that Medicare is based on your income and from 2 years ago. So somebody that sells a house or has a large inheritance, those are things that they'll get charged more for. There is a form that they can fill out, and I would say that the success rate is probably, I would say it's pretty high in my personal experience for my clients, that says, one, if you have it's basically a qualifying life event form. Did you retire? Did you lose a pension? Any sort of loss of income that puts you in a lower bracket to pay less. Though the Social Security's office is the one that processes those forms, they'll look at that and say, all right, yeah, this circumstance warrants paying less monthly, and so that's always an option too.
And from my experience too with clients, like when they've retired, we've
Yes.
submitted this form and it's
Yeah.
usually been accepted.
Good. Yeah. Good to hear.
Which is great because it lowers their premiums. Where
Mm-hmm.
exactly does the IRMA dollars go? Do they go toward paying for, it's just a premium and they still have to pay a Part B premium and a Part C? Like, do they have to pay the supplemental premiums too? Is that how that works?
Yeah, so the IRMA is simply for Part B and for Part D. And so you're not, there is no IRMA on a supplemental plan. So if somebody is in an IRMA situation, they are not going to pay extra for a supplemental plan. So the supplemental plan is a fixed rate based on, demographics, age, and where they live. Now, they would still pay the IRMA even if they enroll in a Medicare Advantage plan. So that, even though the premiums for the most part are $0, they would still pay the IRMA on Part B and D because they have a prescription drug plan.
Thank you.
Yes.
It's all very well. What about folks who are just trying to help their parents or an elderly loved one through this? What recommendations do you have for them?
Yes, we come across this too. Power of attorney is a big thing, making sure that child or family member has the ability, what abilities do they have? Can they sign an enrollment on their behalf? Um, it just depends on, I guess, the health of that particular parent. But we do work a lot with mostly the children of a Medicare eligible client. But we have the same types of conversations and again, just digesting it all and talking with their parent and maybe that person is helping financially too, so that is another factor that comes into play as well. Yeah, definitely all the same things to think about.
Okay. Well, thank you. I feel like there's more to dig into, but I don't want to keep you all day.
No, you're good.
I always sort of end my podcast with two questions for my guests.
Yep.
And it's just with your busy schedule, because most of my listeners are women who are, my age, older. How do you maintain the balance in your life with your own business, working in it and growing it? And you also have children too. Like, what do you do to keep your balance and peace?
That's a great question. I like to work out in the morning. That's my big thing. I feel like I get relief. It's great for me, so I enjoy that. I'm not always great about this, but I want to be better. I do like to go for afternoon walks. And so my husband and I, work together. And so we'll usually after lunch, it's like just a quick neighborhood 20-minute walk. And that just rejuvenates you, whether we're sitting at the desk all day, we're on the phone all day. And so just getting out and getting fresh air and just feels great. So I want to be better about that, but I do love when we do that. And then I love reading, whether it's, business inspirational books or just a fun book. It's just fun to escape. It's hard. I mean, TV is a lot of time for me, so I'm not a big TV person, but so yeah, those are kind of some of the things I do to
Decompress.
get through the day. Yes.
What do you have any book recommendations? I'm a big reader.
Oh,
Anything you've read recently? I read all genres, so.
Yes. Okay, I love that. So I just read Blue Sisters. That
Oh,
was a
I
good
haven't
book.
heard about that. Okay.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I think it's a newer one. So I'm kind of late to the game, but I'm starting to read Atomic Habits.
Yeah,
I know that
that's
was like
good.
I haven't, so I'm in the middle of that and enjoying that, but just trying to, I do a balance of both, a little fun,
Me too.
little motivational stuff.
Yeah, no, I go back to Atomic Habits every once in a while because
Yes.
you forget. You
Yeah.
get into your own life again.
Yes. Yeah, I'm enjoying it.
And then, I mean, you sort of talked about your hobbies just because in retirement it's found that when you have something that you enjoy doing, you love doing, that you have a passion, that you're generally happier and more content in retirement. So I'm always shopping for what people do as
In their free
interests,
time.
yeah, in their free time.
So, have you ever played pickleball?
I have, yes.
Yeah, not into it.
I do. I like it a lot. I
Yeah,
just sometimes I don't know. I feel like I might get injured, but yes, that is the new biggest
yes,
thing. It's fun.
yes. I I grew up playing tennis and ping pong, and
Yeah.
so anything racket sport,
Yep.
badminton, I love. So my like in the summer, my husband and I will go down to the rec center and play. But the older generation is very good. Let me tell you, they have mastered the spin and not having to move around as much, where I feel like I'm like running the court, you know? So, but yeah, we enjoy that. We
Well,
enjoy
that's
playing
fun. Yeah,
pickleball.
I mean,
Yeah.
I get confused with, are you in the kitchen? Are you not in the
Yeah.
kitchen?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's amazing that they're coming up with new games.
Yes. So fun. Yeah, we enjoy that.
Do you like
Um,
being partners on the pickleball court, or do you play against each other?
we are mostly partners. I think I enjoy doubles more than singles. Well, it's less running around
Yeah.
too, um, but I think there's more like of a strategy. And my husband's tall,
Oh,
and
you just put
I'm
them in front.
yeah, exactly. So I'm like picking up the back court, and he's up in front, and so yeah, we have fun. It's a good time.
Wow. I mean, you must be really a great match if you
Uh,
you work all day together and then you go play
yeah,
pickleball together. I mean, I know of couples who playing pickleball together, being partners, would break up their marriage, right?
it is. It's so true. Like there are different spectrums to that. Yeah, we are together all day, every day, and it works great. We
That's
have,
awesome.
yeah, really, it's great. Like with the kids, we can be flexible and be there for them, and yeah, we enjoy it. But we know there's a lot of couples that we hear that from. They're like, I could
Yes,
never.
yes, yes.
Yeah.
Is there anything else you want to share that we didn't maybe cover about Medicare?
Um, just our website is
Great.
wiswellinsurance.com, like our last name, and we use that for our resource for all of our clients. We update it, uh, pretty often. So we put like new information there. You can schedule a call with us. So that's definitely a good resource to get in touch with us and, updates on what's happening in the market, whether it's Medicare, under 65, all of it. We tend to keep that pretty up to date. So that's the best way to find me.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for
Yeah,
your time.
of course. Thank you. Thanks for having me. This was great.